That's the thing you guys need to pick up on. Just if you're at home, when the conversation comes down, interest rates going down, you're a buyer, you're like, okay, let's start talking to the real estate agent.
The cameras flashed as Governor Katie Hobbs stood frozen at the podium, her voice cracking under the weight of a crisis she could no longer control. Across South Arizona, for sale signs multiplied, deals vanished, and once booming neighborhoods fell eerily silent. The housing market had gone cold, not slowing, but frozen, leaving buyers, builders, and families in limbo. As her frustration spilled into a rare on-air breakdown, one question hung heavy in the air. How did Arizona's golden dream of endless growth turn into its coldest reality? What freeze looks like? You can feel it before you even check the numbers. Something in South Arizona's real estate scene has gone eerily quiet. The once lively neighborhoods where bidding wars used to break out over breakfast are suddenly full of silence and for sale signs. Rows of homes sit untouched, their bright flyers fading in the desert sun. Just a few months ago, sellers couldn't keep up with the offers. Today, open houses are empty except for the echo of nervous agents rehearsing their sales pitch for no one. It's the kind of stillness that makes everyone uneasy, the pause before a storm that no one wants to name out loud. Deals that used to close in days are dragging on for weeks or falling apart completely. Title offices that once buzzed with closings have turned quiet, coffee machines humming louder than the phones. Realtors are whispering about buyers backing out last minute, lenders tightening up, and appraisals coming in lower than asking. It's not just bad luck or bad timing. It's a full-blown chill sweeping through the market. Homes that used to fly off the listings are suddenly being relisted, sometimes 2 or 3 times, each one with a slightly lower price tag than before. The energy that once defined South Arizona's housing rush has drained away, replaced by something far colder: hesitation. Prices, once the pride of sellers, have stopped rising and started to sag. The curve that used to point straight up has flattened, and in some areas, it's dipping. Sellers who laughed off lowball offers 6 months ago are now returning calls from the same buyers they once ignored. It's a harsh reversal. Every new listing adds more pressure to an already crowded field, and buyers know it. They're waiting, circling, sensing that time is finally on their side. The supply is swelling, and for the first time in years, demand isn't keeping pace. That imbalance is the real killer. It's not a crash, not yet. It's worse. It's a freeze. Everything is suspended. No one's sure whether to move forward or stay put. Even the condos and townhomes, once seen as the quick, easy entry into the market, have taken a brutal hit. Those little investment gems that used to sell in a weekend are now sitting empty for weeks, sometimes months. Developers who thought they could flip units like hotcakes are quietly cutting prices, offering free appliances or dangling move-in bonuses just to get buyers through the door. And still, nothing's moving. The average condo is taking over 40 days to sell, almost double what it was a year ago. The numbers tell the story, but it's the silence in those once booming buildings that really gives it away. Real estate agents call it a correction. Locals call it a freeze. Whatever name you give it, the story's the same. Too many homes, too few buyers, and a whole lot of nerves. It's not just about numbers anymore. It's about confidence, and that's the one thing you can't fake in this business. Everyone's waiting for something. Rates to fall, buyers to return, sellers to blink first. But while they wait, the freeze deepens. And under that bright Arizona sun, the market that once burned hot enough to scorch is suddenly unmistakably cold. Dreams on ice. Behind all the charts and headlines are real people. The ones who thought they had it all figured out until the ground shifted under them. You can see it in the faces of families who poured everything into their homes, expecting steady value and a safe future. Some of them stretched every dollar just to get their foot in the door, only to watch their property value slide backwards month after month. It's not just numbers dropping on a spreadsheet. It's people lying awake at night wondering if they made the biggest mistake of their lives. Buyers, too, are frozen, but in a different way. They want to buy, they really do, but the fear is stronger than the desire. You talk to folks at coffee shops and they'll tell you the same thing. What if I buy today and it drops tomorrow? It's that kind of hesitation that keeps homes sitting empty. Even those who have the money are sitting on it, convinced that waiting a few more months might save them tens of thousands. It's no longer about falling in love with a house. It's about surviving the storm. Real estate agents are feeling the chill too. A year ago, they were juggling calls, listings, and offers faster than they could count. Now they're refreshing inboxes, cutting commissions, and wondering how long they can hold out. Some have already jumped ship, gone into other jobs waiting for the next boom to bring them back. The freeze has thinned the crowd, and only the toughest are sticking it out. The rest are watching from the sidelines as the industry that once defined Arizona's energy starts to show cracks. Even builders are blinking. Construction sites that used to roar with activity are half empty, cranes still standing but silent. Lumber sits stacked and untouched under the blistering sun. The buzz that once came with every new development announcement has faded into cautious whispers about canceled projects and delayed timelines. Investors who once poured millions into South Arizona's unstoppable growth are suddenly hard to find, retreating to safer markets or holding on to their cash. For renters, it's a strange mix of relief and frustration. On one hand, the slowdown means fewer bidding wars and maybe even a shot at better deals. On the other, it's a reminder that the dream of owning a home is slipping further away for many. When interest rates were high, they were priced out. Now that prices are stalling, uncertainty is keeping them out. It's a vicious cycle that no one seems able to break. You can't help but feel like the whole region is holding its breath, waiting for something to give. The sun still shines, the desert still glows, but beneath that postcard beauty, confidence has frozen solid. People are stuck between hope and fear, unsure which way the wind will blow next. And somewhere in Phoenix, in Tucson, in every quiet subdivision that used to hum with ambition, you can almost hear the same question whispered again and again. When will the thaw begin? When the bubble stops believing in itself? Every housing crash starts the same way. Not with numbers, but with nerves. South Arizona's market didn't collapse overnight. It simply lost faith in itself. You can feel it in conversations at the grocery store or in hushed tones between agents at open houses. The optimism that used to power every sale has vanished. It's like watching a party end in slow motion. The music's still playing, but everyone's already putting on their coats. Confidence was the currency that kept this whole thing running, and once it ran out, everything else began to unravel. People used to brag about bidding wars and flipping condos like stocks. Now they're whispering about foreclosures, canceled escrows, and lenders suddenly going quiet. It's gossip, sure, but it's rooted in panic. A neighbor's deal falls through, a friend's appraisal comes in low, a cousin's home sits unsold for 90 days, and suddenly everyone's afraid to list theirs. The fear spreads faster than any data point could measure. Buyers freeze because they think prices will fall. Sellers panic and drop prices anyway. That's the irony of it. Fear makes the thing everyone's afraid of actually happen. The media hasn't helped. Every new headline about a market correction or real estate chill turns up the anxiety another notch. Local news flashes red charts and quotes experts with the same rehearsed phrases. Temporary dip, expected cool down, market adjustment. But anyone who's lived through this before can read between the lines. Those words are just polite ways of saying things are about to get worse. And when the public starts to sense that, confidence collapses even faster. Even Governor Katie Hobbs, who once called the housing boom a symbol of Arizona's progress, is facing a different kind of pressure. Her calm public image cracked during a recent press briefing, where questions about falling prices and surging inventory pushed her past her breaking point. Cameras caught her frustration, the tight jaw, the trembling voice, and within hours, clips of her meltdown were everywhere. To some, it was a human moment. To others, it was proof that Arizona's leadership had lost control of the narrative. Either way, the optics were brutal. Behind closed doors, lawmakers are scrambling to find answers that don't exist. You can't legislate confidence back into a market. You can't sign an order that makes buyers believe again. And that's what makes this freeze so dangerous. It's psychological. It's not just about interest rates or listings. It's about trust. Once people stop believing that real estate will rise again, the entire machine grinds to a halt. It's strange to think that just 2 years ago, South Arizona was being hailed as one of the hottest markets in America. People were flying in from California, New York, and Chicago just to get a piece of the desert dream. But today, the same desert feels colder than ever. Empty condos, dark windows, and silent sales offices tell the story better than any statistic could. The bubble hasn't popped. It simply stopped believing in itself. And in real estate, that might be the most dangerous stage of all, when the market turns on its own. What's happening in South Arizona doesn't feel like a soft landing. It feels like a betrayal. For years, people were told real estate here was untouchable, immune to the same crashes that hit everywhere else. But those promises have started to crumble, and the fallout is brutal. You can see it in the faces of homeowners who once bragged about doubling their property value. You can hear it in the quiet frustration of realtors who can't close deals anymore. The energy has shifted. The confidence that once drove the boom has turned into disbelief. It's not just prices falling, it's faith collapsing. Neighborhoods that once sold out in days are now littered with "for sale" signs that don't move for months. Investors who used to flood in from California and Texas are ghosting their agents. Even the usual flippers, the ones who always claim to know when to get out, are stuck holding properties that no one wants to touch. The same people who swore real estate only goes up are suddenly silent. It's like the market turned on its own believers, and everyone's pretending they didn't see it coming. Inside real estate offices, the gossip is relentless. Deals falling apart right before closing, buyers demanding massive concessions, appraisals coming in 10% lower than just last year. Lenders are tightening up again, whispering about risk adjustments, code for "we don't trust this market anymore." And those developers who were so confident just months ago, they're canceling projects mid-construction, leaving half-finished condos baking under the Arizona sun. The skyline that once symbolized growth now feels like a graveyard of broken promises. Governor Hobbs's outburst made it worse. Her emotional reaction, caught on camera, wasn't just a political story. It became the symbol of Arizona's unraveling dream. Overnight, her frustration turned into headlines. Governor cracks under housing pressure. The clips spread across social media, each one looping her stammering voice and exasperated tone. Critics pounced, saying her breakdown mirrored the state's own collapse, both struggling to hold it together as the numbers kept sinking. Supporters defended her, saying at least she showed emotion in a crisis. But for the public, it didn't matter. The damage was done. There's something haunting about the silence in new developments that were once full of life. Streets lined with empty model homes, flags flapping in the dry wind, sales offices with their lights still on but no one inside. The desert always had a quiet beauty, but now that silence feels heavy, almost eerie. The market didn't just freeze, it exhaled one last breath and stood completely still. The truth is, markets like this don't die overnight. They fade. Confidence evaporates first, then liquidity, and finally hope. And when hope disappears in Arizona's housing market, you can feel it ripple through every diner conversation, every Sunday open house, every desperate listing post. The freeze isn't just about unsold homes. It's about a state realizing that the dream it built on endless sunshine and easy money has finally gone cold. The governor's breaking point. When Governor Katie Hobbs stepped in front of the cameras, the exhaustion was written all over her face. Her usually composed tone cracked as she tried to explain what was happening in South Arizona's real estate market. Behind her, graphs showed plunging sales, abandoned projects, and the sharpest slowdown in years. For months, she had reassured everyone that the market was cooling, not collapsing. But deep down, she knew the truth. Arizona's miracle growth story had finally hit the wall, and in that moment, the pressure became too much. Reporters weren't gentle. They demanded answers. What's your plan? Did your administration ignore the warning signs? The governor, cornered and visibly shaken, snapped back, her voice rising before breaking mid-sentence. It wasn't political spin anymore. It was human frustration spilling out. For a state that had built its image on calm leadership and unstoppable development, watching its governor lose control on live television felt like watching the system itself fracture. The outburst wasn't about anger, it was about helplessness. She was watching an economy unravel, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Behind the scenes, her advisors were in panic mode. Calls from mayors, developers, and financial institutions poured in. Everyone wanted answers. Mortgage defaults were climbing, foreclosures were ticking up, and construction sites were grinding to a halt. Even Wall Street-backed real estate firms, the same ones that had flooded Arizona with investment money during the boom, were quietly retreating. The illusion of stability vanished overnight, and Hobbs was left trying to steady a ship that had already taken on too much water. For ordinary Arizonans, her emotional outbursts felt strangely familiar. Many of them were breaking down too, homeowners watching their property values sink, agents watching their commissions vanish, workers in construction and lending suddenly out of jobs. When Hobbs lost her composure, it wasn't just her. It was a reflection of an entire state running on fumes. For once, a politician's breakdown didn't feel distant. It felt like she was feeling the same pain everyone else was. The frustration, the fear, the disbelief that the dream was over. What makes the scene so unforgettable is how real it was. No polished speech, no teleprompter lines, just a leader overwhelmed by the weight of a crisis too big to manage. For years, Arizona's growth was its pride. Now it had become its undoing. The freeze in South Arizona wasn't just about homes sitting unsold. It was about trust collapsing, about realizing that no one, not even the governor, could promise stability anymore. Her breakdown became the turning point, the moment everyone stopped pretending things would bounce back quickly. By the time the cameras shut off, the damage was done. The clip went viral, headlines spread across the country, and Arizona's housing crisis was no longer a local story. It was a national warning. Hobbs's tears weren't just her own. They belonged to every Arizonan who had believed in the promise of endless growth, only to wake up and find themselves trapped in a market gone cold. Warnings and broader implications. Growth always looks glamorous from the outside. The cranes, the ribbon cuttings, the headlines about record home sales. It all feels unstoppable until it isn't. Arizona's story is a textbook example of what happens when a market runs too hot for too long. For years, the state rode the wave of migration and easy money, stacking condos and subdivisions across the desert like it was an endless game of Monopoly. But growth without guardrails is a dangerous illusion. When interest rates climbed and demand cooled, the same momentum that built Arizona's boom turned on itself. The crash wasn't a freak accident. It was a long overdue correction wrapped in denial. Governor Katie Hobbs's breakdown wasn't just a personal moment, it was symbolic. It showed what happens when leaders become trapped in the stories they help sell. Stories of resilience, of prosperity, of Arizona as the land that could never fail. For years, politicians and developers painted the state as bulletproof, where sunshine and open land would always attract more people, more money, more everything. But emotions have a way of slipping through when numbers start to collapse. Her frustration, raw, visible, and unfiltered, became both a weapon and a warning. Some saw it as weakness, others as honesty, but either way, it revealed the pressure that comes when optimism collides with reality. The deeper truth is that Arizona's crisis exposed the fragility of the entire Sunbelt narrative. Cities across Texas, Nevada, and Florida built their identities on the same idea: infinite growth, endless demand, and forever sunshine. But the math is starting to fail everywhere. Rising costs, water shortages, and inflated land values are tightening the noose. The Arizona freeze could easily become the next chapter in Dallas, Las Vegas, or Orlando. Anywhere that thought it could outbuild gravity. When the flow of easy credit dries up, these states may find themselves caught in the same trap. Too many homes, not enough buyers, and leaders scrambling to hold the line. There's something almost scandalous about how predictable this was. Economists warned of oversupply and speculative buying years ago. Yet the optimism machine kept running. Investors were flipping homes like poker chips. Developers were throwing up luxury projects no one needed. And officials were boasting about population booms as if growth itself was a cure for every problem. It wasn't. It never is. The crash didn't just freeze the market. It froze the illusion that growth equals stability. What's unfolding in Arizona feels less like an isolated disaster and more like a mirror reflecting America's addiction to expansion. It's a reminder that unchecked growth is as dangerous as decline. that every boom carries the seed of its own bust. For Arizona, that truth hit like a sandstorm, sudden, blinding, and impossible to escape. And for the rest of the Sun Belt watching from a distance, the question is no longer if it could happen to them, but when. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.